What is going on, Buff Nation? And welcome on into a bonus episode of the Sko Show. Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell talking all things Colorado Buffaloes after their pretty significant 41-27 victory over the weekend against Texas Tech. I expected a win. I know you expected a win, Chase. Looked a little bit dicey there early, but Colorado picks up the slack as the game goes along.
A bit of a slow start. I was on the plane coming home from Cabo during that slow start, and as I landed, it seemed like the Buffs started to wake up a little bit as I turned on the game. So I didn't quite see all of the first quarter. I'll probably go back and watch that, but it just sounds like took a little while for the offense to get going. The defense actually played pretty well besides that first touchdown, but I think holding them to those two field goals, making it 13-0 instead of a 17-0, 21-0 type of game. I think that's what really turned the tide for them in the first half. And then you could just see that momentum continue to build and a couple of really good drives to start the second half. And I thought the third quarter, they just completely bullied them and dominated them. And I think that was the reason why they won the game.
Yeah, I agree. And they looked like a team that was off the bye. Like that was one of the big concerns that Danny Bailey and I were talking about on the show last week. And we were at Peckish after, and we were talking it up with the bartenders and all that kind of stuff. And, they lost after the bye to Kansas State. So I was wondered how they might respond, have a little downtime, playing during the day, which Coach Prime was talking about, is one of the things that, he wishes they could do more of because it kind of fits their internal clock and whatnot. But to your point, they get down early 13-0. The offense, took a minute to kind of warm up the engine, but once the engine was warm, they took off, scoring 41 points collectively throughout the course of the game, man. And we'll talk about how this kind of shakes out for their playoff rankings. If you could see on the main rundown topics, there was a big loss for the Buffaloes in Iowa State this weekend, which was great. I also think the fact that Miami losing helps out Colorado's cause just a little bit because you've got a, perennial playoff team that's expected to be there. That's probably, now maybe on the outside looking in. So we'll dive into that in just a moment. But man, Shedeur Sanders in this offense. You saw Shedeur sign the tortilla. You see that going around social media last night?
If they keep throwing him at him, why won't he sign one? That's what he's supposed to do.
How long have they been doing that in Tech? Is that like a long-standing
It is funny. I guess it is sort of long-standing, but I had never really heard that much of it until before this game. I know they talked about it on Big Noon Kickoff, and I started to understand that that's what they do, but I've never really heard of it. And then there was a pretty big deal about it during this game with all the stuff that they were throwing at him. And I guess it wasn't just tortillas, which is why it really started to irk them and irk Coach Prime. I know he was yelling at some officials about some of that stuff, but hostile environment. So obviously CU has proven to be able to go into some hostile environments and still play very, very well. I think that's one reason why that Nebraska game actually helped them. They were so shocked playing at Nebraska, and it was such a hostile environment. It was so loud that I think it has made a lot of these other road games seem a lot easier to them because they have played great on the road ever since then.
Yeah, I've actually got a soundbite that I'll play for you guys here right now. Here's what Coach Prime had to say about Texas Tech fans throwing stuff on the field, not just tortillas, but some extra stuff. Here's what Coach Prime had to say.
They've thrown everything but my mom at me. In my career, you got to understand, I played baseball and football, so batteries and all kind of stuff. So this is normal. So we tried to prepare our young men for that. Thank God a tortilla, that's what you call it, right? It's soft. It's not hard. But when they start throwing the water bottles and those other objects, that's when you got to alarm the officials and say, okay, now, tortillas are one thing, but but water bottles and other things, that get a little crazy. But I'm thankful. I think Joey grabbed the microphone and tried, and it was a timeout, and one of his kids was down, and he said, man, I apologize. I said, no, I had to do it last week. So I had to do the same thing. I had to grab the microphone and talk to our students as well about throwing things. So he handled it professionally, and that's indicative to who he is.
And Colorado has kind of played that anti-hero role throughout the course of the season where, I remember – I forget which game it was. I think it was the Arizona game either before or after. Coach Prime kind of talked about how they like to be the underdog, not necessarily in the betting lines, but more so of going into somebody's crib, making a mess is what Danny Bailey said earlier this week. They play with that extra chip on their shoulder. And, like I said, once the engine got started for this Buffs offense, man, they just did not look back. I mean, Shedeur Sanders had a great game, 30 for 43, 291 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The run game was somewhat there, but it opened up everything else for the passing game. I mean, and that's the big thing, Chase, is, Texas Tech is a team that's averaging well over 40 points per game at home so far this season. So the fact that Colorado was able to put up 41 on their own while the defense kind of kept them in check, I think that says a lot about how this program continues to mature and develop.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've shown ways to win football games. It's not just relying on someone like Travis Hunter, who still played great in that game. And you mentioned the run game. I think they ran it a little bit better in the first half than they did in the second half. But one of the things is running the football. It doesn't always mean you have to just hand it to the running back. I think all the wide receiver screens and all the success that they had running those wide receiver screens, that also opens up your downfield passing game as well. So they figured out ways to kind of utilize those short situations, those first downs to turn them into shorter second downs and shorter third downs. And a lot of that has been wide receiver screens in that game. I thought Pat Shurmur had a great game plan, especially in the second half. And they made some great adjustments. Rob Livingston as well made some incredible adjustments after Texas Tech's first few drives. So it was just a really good overall game. And I think that's just what we continue to see from this football team. They are a damn good football team.
Yeah, for sure. And Coach Prime had a couple of thoughts kind of playing into what you just said, talking about how sometimes they need to get slapped in the face and how they also deal with adversity and how that kind of helps build them for these moments. Here's what Coach Prime had to say after the win at Texas Tech 41-27 for his Colorado Buffaloes.
It's almost like they got to get hit in the face. They got to get slapped. They got to get, they got to feel it. They got to feel the flow of the game. And I don't know why we're like that, because we do everything in our power to, even the way we script practices to get started. And the emphasis is on let's get out to a good start, because we knew if we got out to a good start, the sky's the limit. Every game that we've gotten out to a great start, we've been very strong. In victory margin, I think it's been about at least 14 points when we got out to a good start. But we came on in. We came on in and did a great job at the end. We thrive on that. We thrive on that. We've always been in adverse situations. Everywhere we travel is an adverse situation. Everywhere we go, some of the typing and the pens and the paperwork puts us in an adverse situation. It's not one time that I'm not getting a reminder on my phone that someone's talking about us and putting us in adversity. So these young men, they were bred for this, man. We talk about this. We try to prepare them for things throughout the week that may happen, that could possibly happen, that will happen, and they stand up to the challenge. I'm proud of them. I really am, for what they're doing.
And one of the big storylines, Chase, that I would say for this matchup, at least for Colorado defensively, was how are you going to slow down that Texas Tech offense? Look, we know that Taj Brooks is one of the best running backs in the nation, and he did his thing yesterday, 31 carries for 137 yards. He had a touchdown, an average of 4.4 yards per rush. But I think where the where the Buffaloes allowed the Red Raiders
to doing the Broncos podcast, huh?
Yeah, I just got finished talking Broncos, which was – did you see how that game ended?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, man. Hey, for any Buff fans out there that are also Broncos fans, at least the Buffs got it done yesterday. But what I was going to say is you live with Taj Brooks doing what he does, which is exactly what he did with over 130 yards rushing yesterday. But to kind of limit Texas Tech's offense, 275 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but a key interception as well there at the end of the game that really put the game on ice.
I thought they did a great job stopping the run. I think the only reason why Taj Brooks was able to put up some numbers, and I think Coach Prime mentioned it in his post-game press conference, was during the fourth quarter, some lanes were opened up because Colorado was playing the pass, and Texas Tech would run it on third down in really obvious passing situations when you're down in the game in the fourth quarter, and Texas Tech was willing to run the football, and that opened up some lanes for Taj Brooks. But they did a great job of stopping him, especially in the first half. I think he was less than 2 yards per carry in the first half. And the only reason it opened up was because Colorado started to play the pass a little bit more.
Yeah, which makes sense. And if you're Texas Tech, you kind of want to give what the defense is going to take, what the defense is going to give you. And so I think that's a good point that you make there. But, as we were talking about earlier on in the show, is Colorado's offense really after that first quarter really settled into a good groove. They scored 10 points in the second quarter, 21 points in the third quarter, and then 10 more points there in the fourth quarter. And that Texas Tech final touchdown in the fourth was kind of a garbage time situation. But Travis Hunter, 9 for 99. LaJohntay Wester continuing to show out, 6 for 82 and a touchdown. Travis had a touchdown, of course. Will Shepard, 8 for 79 and a touchdown. And those were kind of your big three, your three-headed monster, for lack of a better phrase, for Colorado offensively. And like, it was crazy, dude. Like, I was sitting with Danny Bailey watching the game at number 38 yesterday. And we know that Travis is like an incredible route runner, but like, you could almost see the respect of him as a deep threat kind of pay off with some of these shorter to intermediate routes. Not to say that his routes weren't great, but there was a couple times where he ran kind of like the slant or the out route over the middle, whatever it might be. And the Texas Tech defenders were playing like 5 yards off of him out of respect for his speed and his ability to, you know, make these moves midair and secure these catches. So I think the deep threat of Travis Hunter and really the deep threat in general of this Buffs offense, I think you saw that kind of play out in their favor by opening some stuff up over the middle. You talked about the wide receiver screens as well.
Yeah, that was why Pat Shermer did a great job with the game plan. Is I think Texas Tech wanted to take away the deep balls, and Colorado didn't do a great job of throwing it downfield, but they just took what the defense gave them. And you mentioned that about Texas Tech, but Colorado also did that offensively, and that's why those wide receiver screens were working over and over. To not have Jimmy Horn and for the passing game to still be that successful, I just think shows how deep this wide receiver core is. And they really did a great job of spreading it around. I thought Will Shepard also had a great game. That catch for the touchdown was incredible.
Sick.
That's just
absolutely sick.
But he had a lot of those highlight plays back at Vanderbilt, and we've seen him a few times, but he is just such a weapon in the red zone, and he's such a key piece to this offense because he gives them something that the rest of the wide receivers aren't able to do, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think to kind of put it in further perspective, just how impactful their passing game was yesterday is nearly per reception. C was averaging like a first down, 9.7 yards per reception on average. So they did a good job of just stretching the field and, you know, not having to put themselves in difficult situations. And that first quarter was a little bit rough. Like, I was seeing the tweets and all that kind of stuff going around social media about like, this is the biggest game for Coach Prime, this and that. Why does the offense look so bad? I turned to everybody at the bar yesterday and I was like, second half team, they're going to be just fine. And that's exactly what you saw play out for Colorado and their offense. Let's give some love to the defense as well real quick. They held it down. Levante Bentley leading the team with 10 total tackles. Nakai Hill-Green making a big impact with 9. Amari McNeil also had a big game, a guy that I feel like we haven't talked about a ton, but he made a big impact on that game yesterday. A lot of different guys for Robert Livingston's defense stepping up to slow down this Tech offense.
The defensive line was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Give a lot of credit to all the coaches on the defensive line. I know Warren Sapp tends to be talked about the most, but all the coaches on the defensive line, I think Amari McNeil is obviously the standout there, and he was the player of the game. I think Coach Prime talked a little bit, or he mostly hinted about it during the postgame press conference, that he hasn't been doing everything in order to prepare himself to be successful. He was one of the guys going into this year that we were talking about a lot because he had a pretty good season last year. But we haven't really been able to talk about him yet this year. And I think he's starting to do a lot of the right things. 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Very impressive. But just the way that they were able to get into that backfield was very, very impressive. I thought Keaton Wade also played well, which is cool because I think this was only his second game of the entire year. And both of those games, the other one was Arizona. He's already had over 1 sack in both of those games. So another guy to be very excited about. Arden Walker, incredible. He had that game-changing play. I know people were talking about Shilo being able to pick that ball up and take it in the end zone, but that was all Arden Walker getting in the backfield and getting that strip. So this defensive line is legit. They got players all across the board, and especially off of the edge. You can just go down. You can pretty much go 3-4 deep with the guys that they have coming off the edge. And I think a lot of opposing offensive tackles are going to be worried about this Colorado team.
Yeah, I agree. Before we transition over to some big picture stuff, also, I don't know if you saw this going around on social media yesterday. Walk-on center Cash Cleveland played a lot in this game, probably the coolest name on the team. And I love that Coach Prime came out in his post-game press conference and basically said, you know, he's a walk-on, right, with all the talent that Colorado has. And he says, we don't care if you're a 5-star, if you're a 4-star, if you're a walk-on. Like, if you fit our mold and you're practicing and playing the right way, you're going to get some opportunities. And I think that also just speaks to the type of coach that Prime is and how he you will earn your keep with this Colorado program. And I forget the player's name now, but there was a big interview prior to last season with one of the few guys that remained on the team from the 1-11 season the year before. They were kind of asking him, like, why did you stay here, this and that? And the answer was something along the lines of, like, I know if I put in the work, I'm not only going to get better, but I'm going to earn the respect of the coaching staff and play for this program. And I think that's just kind of a cool little tidbit there, that you have a walk-on freshman playing a majority of a game that you have to have if you're Colorado. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is pretty incredible. There's not many true freshman walk-ons that can get into a game and compete like Cash did. Obviously, Hank struggled a bit. He's had a couple games where he struggled a bit snapping the ball, but to have a guy like Cash be able to go in there, the dude, he couldn't be more than 270 pounds. So
No.
I don't know what he's listed on the CU Buffs roster, but the dude is pretty small for a college offensive lineman, and he still moves people. Coach Prime mentioned that he has great technique. He prepares really well, and I think it's pretty cool to see a guy like that already succeed this early in his Colorado career.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a cool game. It was a fun game, 41-27, your final score. Real quick, before we talk a little big picture in college football playoff, let me tell you about our friends over at Peckish, guys. And Peckish is the reason we're able to do these shows. That's part of the reason why we're doing this bonus show as well. So if you're in and around the Denver metro area, make sure to check out our friends over at Peckish. 2 locations, one off of I-25 in Bellevue, right around the Denver Tech Center. And if you're going up to the games in Boulder, make sure to check out their original location on the hill. I was there with Danny Bailey last week. They actually now have slices of pizza as part of their special. So before, it used to only be like the personal pies or whatever. Now they have slices of cheese and pepperoni. I've got a couple different flavors because I know you and I haven't been there in about a week or so, that I'm going to have you try because Byron put us on, man. I mean, not enough good things I could say about Peckish.
The whole menu is good from top to bottom. It is crazy how Byron can just pick something for us and we're like, oh my God, that is actually so good. It's usually things that I would never order off of a menu, but they do a great job, especially with the pizza, of surprising us with some stuff that's just insanely good.
Yeah, we got this Peckish pepperoni pie, Danny and I did, and it was pepperoni, red onion. We added some peppercini and a hot honey drizzle over the top.
Oof.
Dude, and it's like, I think it's double pepperoni if I'm remembering correctly. Like every bite is just absolutely phenomenal. It's Coach Prime approved, it's Travis Hunter approved, it's Shedeur Sanders approved. And I think the ultimate compliment that I can give to Peckish outside of the fantastic food is when I went in there with Danny Bailey for one of the first times, he said, I feel like I'm back in college again because it's a CU spot, CU memorabilia all over the walls. Be sure to check out our friends over at Peckish. Again, 2 locations, one up on the hill in Boulder and their brand new location off of I-25 in Bellevue. They've got a brand new happier hour throughout the course of the day where you can get like $1 boneless wings. They've got a bunch of different drinks on special, some appetizers as well. So be sure to check out our friends over at Peckish and let them know that the Sko Show sent you.
If you're on the south side of Denver, which me and AP are south side boys, and you want to feel like you're in Boulder, there's no better spot than going.
No. It's a great place to watch the games, man. The ambiance is awesome. Like, and the food is, I can't say enough great things. I woke up today craving it. I almost went, but then the Broncos started playing and I want to miss the game because I had to talk about it. But I'll be back there this week. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But all right, couple minutes here before we get out of here. Big loss happened in the world of college football as the Kansas Jayhawks, who they'll play in a couple of weeks, right? Because it's Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State, if I'm remembering off the top of my head now. They do the Buffs a massive favor, and they hand Iowa State their second loss of the season. More importantly, their second conference loss of the season. Colorado only has one of those bad boys. And now, Chase, because of that loss to Iowa State, Colorado's essentially firmly in second place in the Big 12, and they move up to 18 in the AP poll. It's all coming together like a good pizza pie.
Can you believe it? And I guess a lot of talk before the year about all the possibilities. I don't think you could have imagined a better scenario with 3 games left in the year than just win them out. 3 games that they're likely going to be favored in. I guess Kansas might be the closest line. I'm not even sure, but that game on the road at Arrowhead Stadium, it's pretty incredible what they have been able to do this year. They're staring 10-2 and a possible Big 12 championship game right in the face. Obviously, still a lot of work to do. They will take it week by week, but we're able to look a little bit more forward than they are. And I can't wait for these last 3 games of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, now I think I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong here. They control their own destiny in the sense of if they win every game, they will be in the Big 12 championship game. And I think with that, I was talking about it with Danny this week. I think the conference commissioners, and I understand the SEC will probably get 4 teams in. The Big Ten might get 4 teams. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just going to be crazy with the Big Ten and the SEC. But I do think that the conference commissioners have a duty to push for both teams that make their conference championship game to get into the college football playoff. So if it's BYU and Colorado, even if BYU wins that game, I mean, obviously if Colorado wins, it's an automatic bid. But like, let's say Colorado comes up just short. Right. I think the Big 12 commish will do everything in his power, on top of the fact that I think the TV networks are going to want Colorado in the big dance as well. But I think as long as they can get to that Big 12 championship game, I think they got a spot, man. I think they're going to be 1-12.
There's definitely a chance. I think a lot more things would have to fall their way over these last few weeks. But yeah, there's a chance that a 10-3 team that lost in the Big 12 championship could probably sneak into the playoff. It just depends on what happens in the SEC and the Big 10. Because it looks like the ACC will probably be a one bid league. So maybe you get another team out of the Big 12. I think maybe definitely a 12-1 BYU team definitely has a chance as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So plenty of season left. You know, I know there's only 3
By
games.
the way, about BYU, I don't know if you watched that game, if you stayed up late last night. I was watching at the bar, but that is the luckiest football team.
Yeah.
Maybe the Chiefs are the only competitors with them, but BYU got so lucky last night. They got bailed out by a holding call that was non-existent, and to be able to beat Utah, it's just ridiculous. It's one of the first times I've rooted for Utah in a game, and I was really rooting hard to see Utah win because I think that would have been great to get Utah coming off a big win like that and have to play in a big noon game this Saturday. So I was really, really pulling for the Utes, and I couldn't believe that BYU got bailed out once again.
Yeah, I think it was the Utah athletic director after the game was talking about, like, he was, I don't think I've ever seen
he walked up there to do his own press conference. Nobody even asked him to. And
yeah.
You never see an AD do his own press conference.
Yeah, he was feeling some type of way. That was crazy.
Holding call, it was non-existent.
Yeah, no, I know.
Now it's ridiculous.
It's a mess, but I think thankfully at the end of the day, man, you know, a productive bye week a couple of weeks ago with Kansas State and Iowa State losing. Now it's 2 losses in a row for Iowa State. So things are opening up for Coach Prime and the Buffs. And we'll be here every step of the way on the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. You can follow me on social at Media by AP. He's at Chase Howell _. But it's all in front of him, man. 3 games. These next 3 weeks are going to feel like eternity, probably. Just waiting each day to get to the next game, especially if CU can keep winning. But this is exactly where they want to be. I'm not sure a lot of people thought that they would be here, even the most optimistic of the bunch. But the reality of the situation is the runway is in front of them. If they can just win these last 3 games and do it in pretty convincing fashion, we'll see where the chips fall when it's all said and done. But Chase, before we get out of here, my friend, you have any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to get off the chest?
I was just thinking as we talk about these last 3 games and Colorado being favored, I just think watching Colorado the last few weeks, there is such a clear talent gap between Colorado and a lot of these teams that they're playing.
Yep.
They are more talented across the board than pretty much every team in the Big 12, which it's crazy to believe, but it's a lot of credit to the player personnel staff and all that they've done in the transfer portal. They have serious dudes on this team, and there's a reason why they're beating the brakes off these guys. I think they bullied Texas Tech. They clearly were the more talented team. I think they're going to show that again against Utah on Saturday. And we don't have to wait for long for that game, 10 a.m. I'll have a beer in my hand hopefully by 7 a.m.
Yes, I remember I was at the big noon kickoff game last year. I was at against USC, and the campus was actually absolutely crazy. And again, if you're looking for a place to watch the game, be sure to check out our friends over at Peckish up on the hill in Boulder or down off I-25 in Bellevue. And I'll also be at number 38 in Rhino for the game for a Mile High Sports watch party. So make sure to come on out to number 38 if you're looking for a place to watch the game. But a good, convincing 41-27 victory for Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes over Texas Tech. They are now 7-2 on the year, 5-1 in the conference, and a lot of interesting possibilities lie ahead of the Colorado Buffaloes. So good stuff. Keep staying healthy, keep playing good ball, and it's going to be an exciting end of the season as the weather begins to get a little bit colder and colder. And again, guys, do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of the Sko Show and all the other incredible programming that we have over here at MHS. But for Chase Howell, I'm Aniello Piro. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the Sko Show, and we'll talk to you guys in the middle of this coming week. Talk about this upcoming game between Colorado and Utah. Sko Buffs, baby.
Can't wait. Sko Buffs.
Let's get it.